Hey, home theater nerds, thanks for pushing play on the Brightside Home Theater Podcast, the podcast that's all about the experiences, the sights, the sounds, the scenes, the people. And this week, I get to sit down, I'm about to head in to sit down with Rich Keefe of WEEI Sports Radio in Boston, of #Dork Podcast, one of my favorite podcasts that got me started in podcasting. Can't wait to tell him about that. I'm going to sit down with him, talk home theater. He's the newest member to the home theater community. Going to find out where he started, what got him into home theater, some of his favorite scenes, all that fun stuff. I'm going to head in. There'll be more afterwards for links on where you can find him, myself, on Twitter, Patreon, all that. But I'm super excited. Can't wait to sit down with him. Actually, a little bit nervous. A little nervous, got to be honest with you. Can't wait to sit down with him, though. So let's head in and have a great home theater conversation with Rich Keefe of #Dork. Let's go.
This is Brightside Home Theater.
Nerds and dorks collide. Mr. Keefe, how are we doing?
I am great. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent. And I called you Mr. Keefe because I don't know what to call you. Do I call you Rich? Do I call you Keefe? Do I call you Rich Keefe?
You can call me whatever the hell you want. Mr. Keefe is a little odd, though. There's not many people in my life that has ever called me Mr. Keefe. But whatever you want. Dork, Keefe, Rich, it's all good.
Dork, Keefe. Well, it's funny because you go by Keefe everywhere, but most people, when you go by a last name, you're like when people call me Briggsy, if you don't know me, I'd be like, why don't you call me Briggsy, right?
Yeah, and right.
Keefe.
No, it's just kind of, I don't know why it became that thing. Like in the radio, everybody's either first or last name, but I would say it's like 85% last name, and then it's just sort of stuck. And then like all through high school and college, and just from playing sports, it was either Keefe or Kiefer. Like there was a handful of people that would just add an R to the end. You're like, that's fine. So it's Keefe or Kiefer. And then that's just kind of what it's been. But what's confusing is there's always the people that when they're just meeting you, they're like, Keith? And you're like, no, it's not Keith. It's Keefe. And then it's just a whole mess. But yeah, whatever works for me.
Yeah, because, I know Ryan calls you Rich, and I felt like, well, that must be the people that know him really well. They get to call him that. But I'm like, what the heck?
It's all over the place. All over the map.
How we doing, Rich? How we doing, Rich?
We are doing great. Yeah. Things
are
looking
great.
up.
Excellent.
Yes.
For all of my listeners that don't know who this is Rich Keefe of WEEI and, more importantly, #Dork. He has basically, my listeners know, when I have somebody on big like this, I like to embarrass them a little bit, and I like to, kiss up to them a little bit. And this whole entire endeavor of podcasting is because of you.
How about that? So I'm either to thank or to blame. I guess it really depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. Well, my listeners would say thank, but then I have a few detractors, but we all do. But yeah, because I got to meet you, and then months later, John and I were talking about it, and you were so great. And listening to you, going back, listening to the early Dork podcast, listening to you and Ryan grow as a podcast, and then talking to you, meeting you, and just being like, yeah, dude, just do it. Blah, blah, blah. You were great. And thank you very much. And I wanted to support you however I could. And then you reached out because you wanted a home theater. And that's like a dream come true to us home theater guys. Anybody wants to call and talk home theater. You had no idea what you were in for, did you?
I did not, no. And it's funny because I remember reaching out to you, and I knew, and again, because we'd followed each other on Twitter, and I knew that you had done a couple of different podcasts, but one specifically about home theater. So I'm like, rather than, because I remember maybe it was 20 years ago when I bought my first like big screen TV, right? Like when I did so much research on that, and I was like, do I want a plasma? Do I want LED? Like, do I want Samsung? Do I want that? I spent so much time on it, and then I finally pulled the trigger, spent like all the money I had saved up, and bought the TV. So anyway, fast forward to 20 years, I'm like, I guess I could do the same research on surround sound or sound bars or whatever. But like, why don't I just go to somebody who talks about this stuff every week? And that's why I reached out to you. And that's what I even said to you. I'm like, is there just like, should I just grab a sound bar or what should I do? And then we ended up going down this road, this conversation, and I'll tell you, I'm very happy with the direction that we went in. And yeah, you've helped me big time, because I know I would have been still, if I hadn't reached out to you, I'd still be online reading reviews for all these different things and comparing it and trying to figure out what to get. But I'm definitely happy with what we chose.
Awesome. We'll get to the Dragon's Lair in a minute. But that's pretty cool. So you've been into home theater for about 20 years, like the idea of it, but you've never had anything like this. You've always just gone with like big TV, and that was your theater, I guess.
Yeah, it was always big TV. And when like back, I want to say, like, I guess end of high school or in college, when I was living with my parents still, they had sort of like a surround sound setup, like not as sophisticated as what I have here, but they had like the multi speakers and the subwoofer and that kind of thing. And I remember being like, this is awesome. And as soon as I get my own place, I want to get it. And the first place I moved into, well, the first couple, it wasn't really, it would have been tough to pull off. And then finally, once I moved into the place I'm in now, which was actually like 5 years ago, but I was like, all right, I envisioned, all right, it was going to be able, it made sense here to get that done. And I wanted to do it because I know you've talked a lot about, you know, like sight versus hearing or visuals versus hearing. And it's true. And like, so one of the easier things to do is just get the biggest TV possible. And so that's what I was rocking with for a long time. And I'm like, all right, how can I take this? I've kind of maxed out that in the space that I'm in, but how can I make it more like a movie theater, which is just always what I've wanted in my house. I don't like to leave the house, by the way, and this is just another reason for me to stay home now that it sounds like I'm in a glorious theater. So yeah, it's been a long time coming, but it's been great.
Oh, awesome. It's so funny because you literally, I'll show some pictures when we talk about the Dragon's Lair, but you literally have as big a TV as you can fit in that spot.
Yeah,
because you have that shelf.
Yep. You've been here. It is literally, I'm in, so we're like it's like the basement, and it's like a side room in the basement, and I had it on the other wall for a little bit and it was okay. And then where I have it now, it's in between windows. So again, not ideal during the day, but at night it's fine. It's great. And yeah, it's a 65-inch, and it's could not be bigger. Like I've looked at, and you know, there's some really nice 75+ inch TVs out there that are cheap now too, but I'm like, I can't fit it in this house, so that'll have to be for the next one.
Well, Rich, I did set you up with that scissor, you know, the wall mount, right? So then we could push the TV right up against the front wall, the bottom shelf, and it would just be drop down a little bit, and we got some room there to play with if you feel like buying that 75 now.
That is probably true. Yeah, so I guess technically you're right, it could fit, but I do like how it's framed right now, which like with the wall, the windows, the ceiling, the whole thing, it kind of is like a perfect kind of spot. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks nice with the lights on right now, but let's be honest, the important part is when the lights go out, right?
Which is what I always say. Everything looks better on my end when the lights are out. So fine.
Oh, now we're going down Dork Alley. So let's talk a little bit about Dork before we get to, because I want everybody to know about Dork. So tell everybody about you and Ryan, how you met, how you decided to do a podcast, and what your podcast is about.
Yeah, so we went to high school together, and so I've known him going on 20+ years now, and obviously we've been friends ever since, so we've stayed in touch ever since. And so my main job is on the radio, so I've been on the radio for a long time, and I've been doing sports for a long time, which I love. I absolutely love sports, but I'm still just as passionate about movies and TV, and to a slightly lesser extent, comic books, video games, and wrestling, and all that kind of stuff. And so back in like it was either 2015 or 2016, I would say there was a lot of podcasts, but not as many as there are today. Like it was already a boom. It's not like I got in on the ground floor by any means, but it was already a boom, not to the degree that it is now. But I was looking into it. I'm like, well, I could do this. And I was working at a radio station at the time, so I didn't even have any of my own equipment. I'm like, I can just record it here and post it and do it all myself. And it started out even before Davey was the regular co-host. It was just a series of my friends, and we would kind of rotate. And so I have one friend who's just like a diehard Star Wars guy. So we did a few Star Wars episodes with him. I had a guy that I worked at the station with, Josh Deering, who watched almost as much TV as I did, maybe even more than I did. So we would do like specific TV episodes, and we would do Marvel stuff with Davey. So it's more of a rotation. But then as it got going, and you know, Davey's schedule kind of opened up to the point where if we do this the same time every week, he could be a part of it same time every week. And now for the last 5 years, probably, we've mixed in, you know, occasional guests or co-hosts, but for 5 years, it's been me and him, and it's been an absolute blast. And it's come at the perfect time because, as you very well know, there's a new Marvel movie, Star Wars movie, Marvel TV show, DC show. Like, that's sort of the basis of our podcast. And then it always sort of offshoots. There'll be sort of these other weeks where we got to get creative and come up with, like, you know, whether it's just top 10 lists of random stuff or like kind of niche episodes on TV shows or movies that we really like. But it seems like a never ending supply of stuff to talk about. And it's a great second, like, kind of outlet for me to talk about stuff other than sports.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of sports, loved your Tuca take today, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yep. Yeah.
That's rare in Boston.
It is. And actually that's one where Davey very much is he's even a bigger Tuca fan than me. He might be the biggest Tuca fan I know, and maybe some of that has rubbed off on me, but he's like, the guy gets a lot of crap, but he's the best goalie in franchise history.
Now that he is retired, as we're dating this episode, I can let the cat out of the bag. I haven't told a lot of people this. I have Tuca's truck. I met Tuca.
Really?
That red Tundra that was in your driveway?
That was Tuca's?
Tuca originally owned that.
That's funny.
He had a deal with one of my dealerships, and when he was trading it in after having it for a year, they were like, I was in the market for a new truck for work, and they're like, do you want it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I like finagled it. It wasn't cheap. It's like got everything, right?
That's amazing. And yeah, that's really fun.
And it still has his name and stuff in it because I didn't take it out of the phone, Tuca's phone.
That's really funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So we're huge Tuca fans in this house. So my son's a goalie, loves Tuca, and I know Davey is too just by listening to him with you. So
yeah.
So that was Brightside Home Theater Sports for a little bit. So, all right, let's get to the Dragon's Lair. First off, how did you come up with? I know where it came from. How did you come up with it? Because I feel like you're a little younger than I am, and the Dragon's Lair was before your time.
Yeah, so it's funny. I forget the exact origin of the Dragon's Lair for me. So you can even see that at the poster behind me of the video game. But you're right. I didn't really play that much. It's a little older than me. There's two things that I think I remember. So I don't know if you've seen the movie Made with Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau, which is excellent. I think it's even better than Swingers. Came out a couple years after Swingers. There's a scene where Vince Vaughn is talking to a guy, and his nickname is the Red Dragon, and he asked him, "Where's the Red Dragon's lair? Where's he lay his head down at?" And I always loved Vince Vaughn, and I'd always quote his stuff, so I like that. And I want to say that it might have been a part of like a Dane Cook stand-up. That might have been a throwaway line in one of his things, which was another guy at that time that I liked. Because I'm not a fan of the man cave term. I don't, for whatever, it's not for me. It sounds like somebody that would enjoy Entourage would say man cave, but whatever. That's for certain people. It's not for me. But I still want to call it something. Like it needs to have a name. So it's just always been the Dragon's Lair for me. But so I don't know what inspired me. It's one of those 3 or 4 things probably is what did it.
I'm pretty jealous. I don't have a name, and I like you, I'm not man cave type person. I've never said I'm going down to I go down to my theater, but it's been the Briggs Theater. Then I had the podcast, so I guess it's the Brightside Home Theater.
It is the Brightside Home Theater. I mean, you can go with that.
Yeah, but I know that, but Dragon's Lair is so cool though, and I mentioned this on Twitter when you first reached out and we were talking about updating the Dragon's Lair. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but there is a home theater reference to Dragon's Lair, the video game, because the video game actually used the actual stand-up video game in the. It was so great. The graphics were so good.
Yeah.
It was one of the first, if not the first, video game to use a laser disc.
Really?
For its information. Yes.
Interesting.
And that's why I love that, because I love laser discs in the 80s. Growing up and look at the people that had those had big, $100,000 CRT projectors and crazy stuff. So I aspired to get a laser disc, and then you find out this great video game that we love to play ran on laser discs, and it was just. And now here I am talking to a guy that owns a Dragon's Lair. It's
not
amazing.
Bad. And then it had a nice cameo, and was it season 2 or season 3 of Stranger Things when the kids were playing Dragon's Lair?
Yep,
pretty good. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Look at that. You've got one of those memories like my buddy John. You just remember every detail. You remember people. I'm not like that. I know
Yeah.
home theater. That's
Use
it.
I remember useless stuff as well though. Like it doesn't really help me a lot of the times. Like
Yeah.
I could probably name where anybody that played in the NBA from like 90 to 2005, like where they went to college, it's the most useless information in the world. Nobody ever asked for it. Nobody needs it, but I guess, you know, a random trivia night at a bar, maybe I could come in handy.
Well, it comes in handy at work.
Yeah,
for
well,
you.
even then, not really.
It is your job.
Because people can just look it up, though. It's like, okay, great. You knew,
That's true.
You knew that 1 second before I did. I'm like, well, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, let's get to what we have in the Dragon's Lair. And now, what I thought was so interesting about your request and your upgrade is it wasn't really an upgrade. It was really like you're coming from nothing. And you had your 2 speakers. You didn't even have a soundbar or anything. And your question was soundbar or this. And I recommended, let's go, because I asked you, well, what did I ask you?
Well, you asked me about what my price range was, and I was like,
Yes.
first and foremost, I am cheap. I am a frugal fanny, but I also said I was willing to invest in it. And I know that you thought that was sort of the key word there, because I didn't want to just get something and then 6 months to a year later be like, well, this is kind of not great, and I got to spend more money. Like, as cheap as I can be, I'll still buy something like I didn't buy the cheapest TV. I didn't buy the cheapest computer. I didn't buy the cheapest like podcasting equipment. Like if there's things like that I'm going to get a lot of use out of it and it's going to be really good, then I'm okay spending some money on it. And so once I told you that, and then we kind of got a little bit closer to what the price would be, we landed on this, which again, I think was the right, I'm a little biased, but I would say it was the right move.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I knew right away where I wanted to go with this, and you came in with your budget around 1,000, and I was like, okay. Well, that usually means I know when you go in to buy a car and somebody says 10,000, you end up walking out with a car for like 12 because it had the features you wanted, and you're like, oh, what's a couple more?
Right.
So I think I even mentioned that to you.
Yeah.
I was you can go a little lower because I really like these products. And the first one is I wanted to set you up with a Denon receiver. And this receiver I had bought, and I was actually going to install it in my house in a smaller theater. And it was sitting here, and stuff happened. My daughter got engaged. Money started going towards that. So anyways, but what I really liked about this receiver, it's the Denon S750H, I believe, right?
Yes.
And it has Atmos like conversion, so you don't have to have Atmos speakers, and it'll like I don't know, implement it or whatever. I can't think of the word right now, but it'll actually run Atmos on a 5.1 system. So I really liked that. But then I'm a big fan of neutral sounding speakers. So I run NHTs in my room. I've been running them for 25, almost 30 years. And what I liked about the SVS system is they were as close to, they're basically like NHTs. Their Ultra systems are above, slightly above my NHTs. These SVS Primes, they're awesome. So the system we set you up with was the SVS Prime satellite system, which at the time I think they were running a sale. I think we got it for like $1,100.
Yep.
That's a 5.1 system, and that comes with their 1,000. I think you have the SB 1,000 subwoofer, which in that room, how's the bass in that room?
That's great.
We messed around with it a little bit. I wanted to experience some more, but we were chatting for a while.
Yeah.
But
no, it's great. And that's the thing is this size room, and I'm sure you could even go bigger in this room, and the speakers and the subwoofer would still be fantastic. But in this room, it is, some of these scenes are just, it's like a completely different movie or a completely different TV show. But it's been because one of the reviews I read about it was between like the whole package, the speakers and the subwoofer. I think the way they wrote it was like it kicks way above its weight or whatever the hell the term was. I'm like, yep, that's true. Like it is definitely, you're getting plenty of bang for your buck when it comes to some of these scenes.
All right, adding a subwoofer to the house though, how's the wife feel about it?
Well, I got to pick and choose when I go full tilt boogie, obviously, because our family room is directly above the Dragon's Lair. And so if my wife is watching a show up there, she's very well aware if I am full go watching a movie, so I can kind of cool that off. But thankfully, our bedroom and my daughter's bedroom is at the other end of the house. So if she goes down to bed, I can turn it back up. Not all the way necessarily, but still plenty enough to enjoy it and not wake them up. It's like just far enough away where it works.
Well, we're only running a single SVS 1000, but Rich, we can upgrade to a dual 2000s, and we'll be able to reach the other end of the house if you'd like.
If we want to keep everybody up at all hours, that is
at all hours.
That is achievable. Good.
Yes, it's like when I watch movies down here, I'm in the basement. My wife's actually, I'm in the basement on one end of the house. My bedroom is 2 floors up on the other end of the house.
Perfect.
And you can hear it. You can the walls are brr, brr, on those good scenes. So but yeah, that's awesome that that to me, I'm actually asking that question as a home theater fan, because that's how you know your subwoofers are running well, is if you're feeling it upstairs and she's like, yep, he's watching a movie down there, and you're getting that rumble throughout the house. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a couple of weeks ago watching Book of Boba Fett, and I was down here and she was upstairs, and I didn't even have it that loud either. And she's texting me, she's like, what is that going on down there? I'm like, oh, it's just the scene. Try to turn it down a little bit more, but no, it's great. Yeah, you definitely know it's working. That's for sure.
So has she watched any movies with you? Does she like to come down, or are you one of those like, I got to do this on my own type thing?
No, she's more than welcome to come down here. Again,
I know she's welcome to, Rich.
She's welcome.
Does she?
Not really. No, the Dragon's Lair is certainly all inclusive. Anybody is allowed in here. My dog doesn't really come in here that much anymore either. I don't know if it's because it's too loud. She's watched a couple of things down here, and she's like, oh, this is good. Like, she could tell it's a difference, but it doesn't interest her nearly as much as it does me.
Right. And now, are there any shows that she'll like want to watch? And then this is the other question that we get, or that you hear all the time, like that you would say, yeah, I want to watch that, but we got to watch it downstairs.
So yeah, we have a handful of like overlap shows, but I wouldn't call any of them like must see downstairs shows or Dragon's Lair shows. Like right now I'm trying to think. We watch Pam and Tommy. We're watching Righteous Gemstones. We started watching.
Come on, Pam and Tommy on the big screen.
No, the Hulu show. The other one, yes, the Hulu show. Yeah, they don't really need it. But yeah, nothing that has been like we got to come down, because she didn't watch Hawkeye. She didn't watch what was the other show I was just watching that was similar to that? Oh, Peacemaker. She doesn't watch Peacemaker. Like all of those shows I've been loving down here. But yeah, nothing has really called for it yet. We'll get into like maybe we'll probably end up watching more of the Oscar movies as we get closer to that, and then we'll probably end up doing it down here just for the whole experience of it.
Cool. Yeah, the shows are so much better now. That's what I was really excited for you for that. I said that when we were doing the install. I'm like, I can't wait for you to see these shows. And I even mentioned, I think I talked to you about Daredevil.
Yes.
Going back to 2015 and the surround sound, and all of these streaming shows are so much better now because with the surround sound that they do, that most people, they're watching these things on a laptop.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, like when I was again like calculating, like, all right, if I'm spending this much money, and like, how do I make sure I get my bang for my buck? I was just thinking of movies at first, and I was like, and I'm like, oh, that'll still pay for itself because I'm gonna watch so many movies down here and it'll pay for itself. And I'm like, oh my god, I forgot I'm watching at least 3 shows a week that add so much more to it when you have the surround sound. I wasn't even thinking of that, so I'm like, oh, this is gonna pay for itself even sooner than I thought.
The bucks are rolling in.
I'm already plus money now on this thing. It's great.
Yeah, and it's like, so have you changed your mind? I know you said you don't like to go out of the house, but are you now more like, how many movies, like you in your 2022 movies, Moonfall, as soon as you said like, I don't think I'm going to see that, and I'm like, Rich, that's the one where you go, I'm going to wait until see that in my house with my theater. I'm like, you got to start talking about the theater.
Yeah, that's true. There's the theater ones. I mean, I'll still go to like the main theater, obviously. Like I'm not opposed to that. And like the Batman, I'm not, even though I know it's going to be on HBO Max quickly, like that's an opening weekend type of movie. And there's those movies, but But like last year, HBO Max had so many, and actually we had this thing set up before Matrix came out, so it was perfect. Like, one of the first movies I watched was the new Matrix movie in here, and so anytime something like that comes out, and some of these Netflix ones, like some of these just straight up popcorn movies that aren't going to be great movies, but they're free. You can
that's what I mean.
Fire them up and do that. So yeah. No, I'll end up watching more of those, and then they won't be quite as bad. Because again, I watched way too many movies last year, and most of them were bad. But now they'll be a little bit better because it's going to sound better.
Well, that's my next question for you. Have you given anything a second chance, knowing what you have now, and that maybe something would have been upped? Like you already liked Free Guy. Most people did anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
But have you rewatched that? I know you saw that before the system.
Right. I saw it before the system. I've not rewatched it. I'm trying to think what have I rewatched. Well, like, so one movie that I watched, was it with the system? Yes, with the system, was Red Notice, which I personally did not think was a very good movie. And I was like, had I not watched it in this environment, it would have been even worse. It would have been like, at least there were parts of it I could enjoy. And I also looked at it as this is a cool way for me to sort of like test the system and like see just how cool it sounds and like watch scenes. So like, it wasn't like a complete waste of time because I was able to be like, oh, that scene was great with the subwoofer, and like, oh, you could like hear like explosions from like both ears. Like, so that part was at least a little bit worthwhile. Not that I would recommend that movie or watch that movie again, but it was like, had I just watched it with the two speakers, it would have been like, what's the point? It would have been a real waste of 2 hours.
Well, yeah, because the story in that, and it's the jokes, and it's kind of, I mean, I did enjoy it. Okay. My father really enjoyed it. I like that corny stuff. It's that one there. My dad, one of my favorite movies my dad likes is The Last Boy Scout.
Oh, I like The Last Boy Scout. Yeah.
And this kind of reminded me a little bit of that. Only like the characters were playing off each other a little bit, like Bruce Willis and what was it, Damon Wayans?
Yeah, Damon Wayans.
I think was in it.
Yeah.
So the way they played off each other, but they were switching back and forth which characters were interacting. But I thought the action was great, and that's why I was like, that's a great example of how this system has upgraded your view on things.
For sure.
How big is your room? I forget on that. It's like 14 one way and 12 the other, or something like that.
Or is it 14 and 16 maybe? Something like that. I think it might be. I think it's 14 by 16. And it's funny because like the way the stuff is in here, it looks way more rectangle than it is, but it's pretty close to a square. But it's small enough. Yeah. I haven't put a door on it yet. I'm considering doing that. It's, again, that's like on the lower list of home maintenance kind of things here, because it's sort of like an open doorway into basically what's just like a playroom. But it's still like, I know I'm losing sound into that room, but it's still like the thing rips, and I still don't have it. Right. I could turn it up more than I do, and I don't. And so far so good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the 5-point, the Prime satellite system from SVS is like, the way we have it situated is, so you're sitting the short way, which is nice. And so you're nice and close to that TV, and we have it. Have you moved it in and out, or are you just leaving it where it is?
Oh yeah, no. I move it in and out, and even like
Do you? Cool.
Oh yeah, all the time. And then it's also nice the angle too, because so right now I'm actually facing the TV, and I have it slightly tilted towards me. So like when I'm podcasting, I might be watching what we're talking about. I have like the Olympics on right now, but then I can. But then when I go and sit in my couch next to me, like to my left, then I just like angle it back that way. So that's been super cool too. That's been super helpful.
Yeah, and then what's nice about the surround system that we have set up, you're kind of in the middle of that 16-foot span. So you're right in the middle. Your seat is right in the middle of that sweet spot. And I think the only thing you're losing with that, with not having a door, is the added bass that you would get if you could close that area off. Other than that, it's like you're getting the full experience, and it wouldn't even be until, like, honestly, you would have to upgrade. Like I said before, you're the one I told my listeners about. Just do streaming. You don't need to do discs and stuff like that. And then you said you might be moving in a few years or whatever.
Yeah.
Then you do the enclosed, and you'll actually notice a difference. But this is a great theater for you to experience for a while. And then when we upgrade it, you'll be like, oh, wow, there's some extra punch here. And it's like, it'll actually get quieter. but loud, the bass will feel better, and it'll be you'll really like it. You'll really like it.
That was been great. I went a couple of weeks ago. I went to like the regular theater to see Scream, and I was sitting in like the second to last row, and I was like, "Man, this isn't as good as being at home." Like, just because, like, even though the screen was huge, like I was so far away from it, and obviously I could have bought a ticket closer, but whatever, I didn't, and so I was sitting further back, and then I'm like, "Man, last night I was watching a movie, and I like felt like the thing was in my lap, and like the thing was so loud, and I was like, eh." Because it wasn't IMAX. Like I'm like, Scream, I don't need to see it at IMAX. I can just go see it in a regular theater. But I was like, I wish I was watching this at home. That's what I think.
And that's awesome, because we say that all the time. And you'd have to go to a Dolby Cinema, sit in a sweet spot to actually experience anything better than what you have. I would love to. I know, busy, COVID, all of this. I'd love to have you out here and experience this.
Yeah.
And then you'd be able to, but you could do that, like we'll do that next year or something when you're getting closer to maybe, because sometimes you do this and you're like, how do I, now what? I got to go home and, but actually I heard your system and it is very close to this.
Is it really?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not kidding you. It's like, I was very impressed. We turned that up and I was like, wow, this is really close. It's like the time it takes you to drive home, you'd probably be like, oh, yeah, no, they are pretty close. It's if you heard them back and forth or you listened to one for a long time, the bass is what you're going to feel in here and maybe a little bit more directionality. But it is it's an awesome system. Yeah, I loved it.
It's great. I agree. No, thank you. Yeah, it's great. And like, thank you for picking it out. Not just for saying that. I would have gotten whatever you said. I was going to trust you, but it's you got the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the SVS is great. And the other thing that's nice about that stuff is, and this is what I told you, it's an investment. All of that is upgradable. If you wanted to upgrade your center channels, we can actually take those other channels and put them behind you. So you could have a 7. So like say your left and your right, you take them and move them behind you, right? You upgrade other things. You could sell off a couple and put in some overheads or whatever. It's the entire thing it's modular. You can upgrade, and that's why it's a better investment. Yeah. So cool. All right, let's get to some scenes that you have actually chosen, which are insanely good scenes from movies. You pick first. Which one do you want to do first?
All right, let's go with the last scene in Rogue One. The final scene in Rogue One, where, again, great movie and only made better by the final scene with the appearance of Darth Vader in that hallway, and here comes the lightsaber, and it's just incredible. And you get both, like, the score is so good, pumping through the speakers, but then just the action, the guy's screaming, the guy's running, it's just chaos, and then Vader's just moving smooth down the hallway with his lightsaber, just smoking just the blasters with it. You hear the guy. One of the great parts of it is the guy tapping and like knocking on the door to try to get the door open, and like you hear that coming through all the speakers. It's just incredible. It's one of my favorite scenes anyway. Like you could watch that anywhere and it'd be one of the best scenes. But then when you get a chance to watch it in a home theater, it just takes it to another level.
So when was the last time you saw it in a theater environment? Probably in the theater, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like with that, yeah. Like I've watched it obviously on like my big screen, but that was before I got the speakers. So that was, it, like a surround sound kind of thing was definitely when it came out, 5 years ago or more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that the sound of the alarm you have going on down the right side of the room, the characters yelling, screaming, the saber going, and the saber's actually going back and forth across your screen.
Yep.
Did you notice watching it over when you sent the scene and you're like, check out this scene? And I'm like, did you notice that Vader puts his saber through the door through a guy?
No, I don't think so.
Yes.
I'll watch it again. It goes through a guy. Oh, interesting.
Yep. When he gets to the door, there's a guy at the door banging, and the saber comes through, and then the door opens, and the saber had gone through the door, and it was through the guy, and then the guy falls to the floor.
Yep. So it's good.
That and the one that he hung the guy up in the air, walked under him, then reached back with the saber and like cut him in half.
It's
like
so
cut
good.
him down the side. Oh, it's so brutal.
It's just
so brutal.
It's so good. And I know that I think it almost wasn't even in the movie. Like they thought about not putting it in there. That's what I read. They were like, they almost didn't put it in the movie. Thank God they did. I mean, it kind of, in a way, I guess, takes away from the film. The film was really good, but then that scene is maybe the best Darth Vader scene in all of Star Wars, which is kind of nuts for sort of like this one-off movie.
Yeah, we all kind of said that when it happened. We were like, we had to wait for, because we had, much like Boba Fett lore, which has kind of been ruined. But much like that, it's like all we knew is that Vader was like the baddest man in the world, you know, in the universe, and you were so afraid of him. Even as a little kid, you were like, he's awful. But he never really did anything in any of those movies. He never really, I mean, he killed Obi-Wan.
Right, which again, one of my favorite movies of all time. But if you go back and watch that scene, it's one of the worst fight scenes of all time. It's just it's like ding, 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 floomp, and you're like, so he's done. And yeah, it's all kind of lore, and you're like, oh, this guy was great. People are scared of him, and then you get the prequels, and you're like, they're scared of this guy, and then you're like, they try to turn up the hate in episode 3, but I remember even as a kid being like, that sweet spot is in between episode 3 and episode 4. That's when Darth Vader is the scariest guy in the galaxy, and you finally get a taste of it there in Rogue One. It's also why I'm so excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which is going to be another must watch in the Dragon's Lair show every week. Really anything Star Wars, and even Boba Fett, you can complain about, you know, some of the show, but the story, but the story very much so. But the sound and what it looks like is just everything. Star Wars is just built for home theater. Like, you can't go wrong with any of it.
Well, that's like Lucas invented the home theater, basically. He did this. He demanded Dolby Surround in theaters back in the 70s when Star Wars came out. If you didn't get it, you didn't get the good version. You got like 35, not the 70 millimeter version. So, and then he did THX. And then, of course, his buddy Spielberg comes out with DTS, and they promote DTS with Jurassic Park. That was just a little movie for home theater. So, I mean, these things are all for, you know, they're selling you at the theaters and they're making billions there, but they're selling you at home and all of this stuff. And it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I love this stuff.
Really, like, whatever I spend on Disney Plus a month, like it all is so even more worth it, just because everything on there is built just for this stuff. Like any Star Wars or Marvel property that you throw on there is just fantastic. Yeah.
And then, I mean, for them, Disney Plus to be adding IMAX enhanced, that's for the big screen people. That's to experience that. And we'll get to that in one of these scenes in a second. But yeah, so what scene would you like to do next?
Let's go to my personal favorite Marvel movie is Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It is so rewatchable, and it's been fun to be able to rewatch it now with this awesome setup.
Great
that I have.
Soundtrack. So
everything.
The sound in that. It's not one of my personal favorites. I have it lower, but the soundtrack in it is a fantastic home theater movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. To me, it is so rewatchable, and then you can pick a number of different scenes here that are cool and sound cool. I'll go with when they're breaking out of jail, when they got all the Guardians sort of form up together. And again, it's another one of these scenes that's so chaotic, and you got stuff going from speaker to speaker. You got gunshots going everywhere. And one of my favorite parts is when Drax throws this huge gun to Rocket, and everything stops for a second.
Yeah.
He cocks the gun, and then it like slows down, and you hear that in all your speakers, and then he just starts firing. And then it's just absolute chaos. And then it cuts to like Peter Quill trying to get the guy's leg, and it kind of stops. And then it goes back to chaos again, and everybody's going nuts. And it's just that scene. I mean, in its entirety. I mean, you go 5-10 minutes or whatever it is. Awesome.
It's just under 4 minutes.
Okay, it's just under 4. Okay,
it's from the 35-20 mark to the 39-minute mark.
Awesome.
And it's that entire scene is in IMAX enhanced.
Yes.
So that timestamp takes you IMAX enhanced from when they open up, and that's when the fight happens, because they're planning their escape and they have to get those certain things, and then Groot just pulls the alarm off the wall or something, whatever.
He just walks up. They're all like talking about. He's literally the Leroy Jenkins of the group. Where he's just like, all right, let's do this. And then so he just rips it off, and then the plan has to escalate a little bit. But yeah, you have like the alarm sounding. You have all the inmates running around. It's just all these gunshots are going off. Things are getting smashed to pieces. It's awesome.
And on Disney Plus in the IMAX enhanced, especially that scene when you said Rocket he cocks the gun and goes, oh yeah. And then you just like go to watch it without the IMAX enhanced, and it's like part of his head's cut off. You still get his head there, but it's just so much better in IMAX enhanced.
Oh yeah, it's
because
great.
it's his whole head, and
Mhm.
you just, that look on his face, and it's like you see his ears and everything. It's so much better. I had my buddy Ara that does the HT guys, and when they first came out with IMAX enhanced, he goes, I think it sounded better too, because he goes, but I think that might just be because I think it looks better, because it just gets
It's
you into
everything
that
together.
scene so much better.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
much better.
And like, I mean, Rocket is probably one of the best like CGI characters in a long time. Like all the detail in him, and then so you're seeing that, and then on top of it, you get the crystal clear sound and the whole thing. It's a perfect combination.
Have you seen the behind the scenes of what's his name that's voicing Rocket?
Bradley Cooper.
Yes. Have you seen the behind the scenes of it?
No.
When he's in front of a mic,
Yeah.
and like they have to do, right? But looking at it's like Rocket's face. And they do that on purpose. Like the CGI guys, when they do, I know they did that with Toy Story, they do people's faces and they kind of make it a likeness. But when he did, I don't know if he did the oh yeah scene. I don't know if I saw that, but I feel like it because he said something on one and he made like the same snarl and the look, and he's like, oh yeah.
Pretty good.
Like,
yeah.
it looks, he just really is just acting it out right there just to a mic though. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to see. That's the other thing, the dialogue in that scene. There's, like you said, chaos, but they're yelling and talking to each other, but the dialogue was crystal clear.
Yes. No, it was. Yeah. I mean, how they shot that and edited that, it is perfect, because you easily could have lost stuff. And again, maybe you're able to pick up on a little bit more of it because of, again, these big screen TVs and your sound systems are just a little bit better, but there's certainly a lot going on. That's one of really James Gunn's specialties, between the Suicide Squad, Guardians of the Galaxy, to be able to highlight all these characters, to combine action and comedy, and then also tell a story throughout, and then but also not take it easy on these massive action sequences too, which is exactly what we're looking for.
Oh yeah, and the characters he picks, they're like, I mean, he hasn't done a big character yet. They're big when he's done with them.
Exactly. Yeah, he'll take
Right?
anybody, turn him into a star. Yeah.
Oh yeah, even a starfish. So I mean, there you go. So all right, this last scene. I don't know what time you got to get to bed, Rich, but
No, go ahead.
this last scene. No, go ahead, introduce it. This is the biggie. This is badass.
This is sort of an obvious one, because when you told me like pick a couple of scenes, I'm like, well, I could go kind of like, niche scenes that but like, no, I'm not going to overthink it. This is the final battle in Endgame, which is the culmination of, at that point, 22 Marvel movies. You have all of these characters all popping up, and because I also remember that one being one of the in real theater experiences that I remember so vividly, and then be like, I can't wait to watch this again. But I know when I watch it again on a TV without the surround sound, it's not going to be as good. Like it's going to be missing something. So that was one of the first 5 things I rewatched, probably, because I remember when you were at my house, Infinity War was the first one I wanted to put on, and so we watched Infinity War. We watched a couple scenes. I ended up watching the whole thing. Then I watched Guardians, but then I went back to Endgame, and I'm like, I got to see the final scene, because that also goes from at times real quiet, like nothing, to then just the biggest, most crazy commotion going.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. It's like, so you just told me, I was like, give me a few scenes. So you said this one, and I was like, all right, where do you start it? So I've got timestamps for all different start times.
Yeah.
Now, I think the original, what I started at was the 2-hour, 2-minute mark when Thanos launches at the compound. But that's like, they get crushed under there and stuff. So then I was like, all right, maybe it's Thor's thunder. And that's at 2:07 when Thor, and it's a great scene when Thor, they go left to right across your screen. Thor, I think Thor, Captain America, and Tony are standing there looking down at Thanos, right? And then Thor cracks the thunder, and then he goes from, what's his name? The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, the dude.
The Thor costume.
Yeah.
And his beard magically gets braided, because it is magic. But that thunder crack was fantastic.
Yeah.
But all of that is leading up to the big battle.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Captain America getting the hammer. at 2 minutes and 13 seconds. That was an awesome scene. That scene sounded awesome too, because that hammer went back and forth across your room.
Yes.
Before, remember when Thor's like, because he was battling Thanos,
right?
And the hammer went by them, so it kind of pans from left to right across your room. Then it comes back again and goes past them to Captain America, and you get that. So you have that big emotional moment. But then it wasn't until like 2:15, Thanos' army arrives.
Yes.
And then at 2:16 and 14 seconds, we get On Your Left, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house.
No, there wasn't. And you remember, like, people were cheering like crazy in the theater. So to be able to rewatch that, and I think all of it, like, first of all, the Cap getting the hammer not only is a cool scene, but it is just one of the all-time, like, listening to that back is just so cool in the home theater. And then anytime they're opening portals and people are jumping out of the portals and all the different setups, and then, you know, different people take a run at Thanos, like whether it's Scarlet Witch or whoever, like they get a chance at it. It's so good. It's nonstop, and the sound is perfect on it.
Oh yeah. And what's Captain Marvel showing up?
Yes.
When everything, and like you said, everything goes quiet.
Uh-huh.
And the guns, you hear the guns, and you look over, and even in the theater, you're like, you were so involved with the scene, you didn't even realize, and you're like, oh, I know who this is.
I know, it's so good. So good. You're just waiting for more and more people, and then also, like, the bigger the screen, the better, and you can, like, really look, and you're trying to identify as many people, like, in the background as you can too.
Oh,
and it's just,
oh, absolutely,
it's one of the best Easter egg type scenes that Marvel's had.
It's funny you say that. When I was watching it, the only thing I can compare it to is the final battle in Ready Player One.
Yeah, and, right. Where you're just like, you want to pause it and just like look around and like point and find all these different characters.
Yeah. Because you know the one that Spielberg did with that, or he told them not to do. There's not supposed to be any Spielberg homages in that battle scene. So the job of the CGI people was to get it past him and get it into the movie, and there's like a handful that are in there.
Is there?
I forget what they
sure.
are right now.
Yeah.
But that was, like, that scene is just like,
because
that's
nonstop.
Yeah, it wasn't 100% to the book, the whole movie, I mean, but that scene was kind of an homage to the book and all the stuff that's dumped into that book. Did you ever read the book? I know Davey did.
Yeah, Davey loved it. I never did, and I know he was kind of disappointed in the movie because he's such a fan of the book. And I know they had to modernize a lot of the characters that they used and a lot of the Easter eggs because the book was a lot older. So like some of the characters, like the Overwatch characters, obviously weren't in the book and stuff like that. But
yeah.
But that's another example of a movie that would have been cool to watch here, like, you know, and experience that, even though it's maybe not the world's greatest film ever made.
I enjoy. I mean, I enjoy it. I have it in 3D too, and in 3D,
how's that?
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's another level. The thing with 3D is it's kind of like the opposite of like IMAX Enhanced on Disney Plus, where the sound on Disney Plus just doesn't have the same punch as the disc does, right? But you're just so involved into the movie. Well, it's kind of the same thing with 3D. Most 3D movies don't have Atmos with them, and so their sound is a little bit less than what you get in the 4K version. But 4K has gotten so good, the HDR is so good that it's pretty close. And I've done a lot of comparisons. My listeners and I go back and forth on which is better. But it's really fun in 3D, especially on the big screen like this, because it really sucks you right into it.
That'd be cool. Yeah, because I'm not like a huge 3D fan. I did like Doctor Strange in 3D a lot. Doctor Strange is awesome in 3D, and I'm sure the sequel that's coming out soon, that'll be a really good 3D movie too. But I usually opt for just like the regular IMAX when I go.
I like it. I wouldn't say I prefer it over anything else, but I do like to experience it because it's just something different, and it's fun to do every now and then.
Yeah.
It's funny. The funny story about Ready Player One is the reason I read the book was because of Davey.
Oh, okay.
The movie was coming out, right? And he had recommended it like a week or two before the movie came out.
Yeah.
And off of his recommendation, I was like, oh, let me pick this up. I got sucked into that thing so bad. I finished that book, for me, inside a week, which is really fast. I finished it and went to the 9 o'clock showing of the night that the movie came out. So I had to finish the book before I got there, and I didn't buy my tickets. I just went and went right there. But I really enjoyed the book. I'm reading Ready Player 2 now. I'm reading Ready Player 2 now. So yes, really, I'm enjoying that one too. I don't know if Davey picked that one up, but yeah. But all right. Yeah. Anything else on that Avengers Assemble?
Yeah,
That that was when he says that. I love how he yells it and then just goes assemble, like very quiet. And it's like you said, the sound going up and down. But that was another huge emotional part because so many movies had been doing. They had alluded to it so many times in movies leading up to it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's about it. Do you have anything else?
No, I don't have whatever. Those are the three scenes. Like I said, I mean, anything on Disney Plus seems to just be elevated from it, and I'm enjoying the hell out of these shows now too. Like, and then even rewatching some of the Mandalorian, or you said rewatching Daredevil. I know that's on Netflix, but rewatching those shows, you get like an added sense of appreciation for them because those were all shows that I just watched, on the couch with the TV. Maybe you'd watch them on the computer every once in a while, but now watching them on this, it's just fantastic.
All right. What do you think is going to be your first upgrade? You're into home theater now. You're down the rabbit hole. That's what we do. We upgrade.
So I think my first upgrade might not necessarily be the equipment itself, but we were talking about either putting in a door or some more kind of soundproof type stuff, like making the room itself a little bit better, and which would then therefore sort of enhance the equipment that I have. That's probably what I'm looking at first.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
You definitely use some sound absorption in that room.
Yeah.
Which would be nice. Just to if we put enough in there, especially like on your windows, you could put something over your windows that had some like insulation in them that would absorb sound. And that would make it quieter upstairs, and you rerun EQ and you'd get even more of an enhancement of your surround sound because it makes your center channel better, and putting that door in would be huge. So
yeah, and then this is also where I podcast from too, so like that would also be like two birds in one stone kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would help. Even the sound would help you. Your audio is really good in your podcast anyway. So.
We're known for our audio.
You don't have. Yeah, this week you are. Yeah. Oh, actually, that's funny. Well, we can. The Dork podcast, like you said, you were starting. Davey used to call on the phone, and it's funny you mentioned that this week on the show when your audio kind of went wonky. We'll call it that. But yeah, and that's the idea of podcasting too. It's like you guys right now, you have a very tight, very professional show, and it sounds great. And I remember saying to Dr. Joe, our buddy, that when Davey first got the better mic, I was like, I want him to go back to the phone because that's what I know.
Yeah, so used to it.
It's like that's what made me feel comfortable. I was like, you sounded normal. He's on the phone. It's not. That was what I knew the Dork podcast to be. But
no, it is funny because for a while we had a lot of my other friends were on like cell phones. So then Davey was on a landline, so he automatically sounded better. But just even imagine doing a whole thing on a landline phone is kind of comical. But he'd do like a whole hour on a landline phone, and you're not alone. Like people just get used to it. They're like, all right, that's what Davey sounds like. And then we figured out how to do it in a different way, and then he ended up just adding to his. He got like a real microphone. It's like it's not even the same guy anymore. You're like, oh, actually, exactly what he sounds like, but nobody else knew it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he does sound a lot like Adam Cole.
You know what's funny? You're not the only person that has said that to me because, especially after the whole joke came out about how Davey didn't even listen to that episode, and then people were like, I actually, when I first turned it on, I thought he was on with you because that was Davey couldn't be on there that day, but then Adam Cole comes on, they have a very similar kind of like cadence. It is funny.
Yes. Yeah, it was. How much fun was that for you?
I loved it. Because I like wrestling. I'm not like diehard into it like I was when I was like in middle school and stuff, but I still like it. I like Adam Cole, but he's also a massive video game guy. So he was like the perfect guest to come on Dork, and he was great. Like he was really, you can tell when you interview some of these guys that are like promoting appearances or whatever, some want to be there, some don't. And he definitely did. So I would love to have him on again because he was great.
Yeah, that was, and it was too bad that Davey couldn't make it because you have that whole video game, Davey's video game minute,
Right.
and then the guy that does the video game minute on your show isn't there talking to the video game, the wrestler that's a video game guy.
Right. The guy who's on, he twitches all the time, and he's got like a big following on there, playing all kinds of stuff. So yeah, hopefully there is a next time, and hopefully Davey gets a chance to meet his soon replacement on the Dork Podcast.
When he comes back, you should just step aside and go, okay, you can have the whole show, Davey.
I'll sit this one out. Just introducing you guys. I'll take a hike. Yeah.
I'll just sit here. That'll be the next show that Davey's mic goes bad too.
He's like, wow, he's got a really deep voice. The guy's messing with us. I have a lot of listeners that crossed over to my Brightside, my chat podcast. If you're any of those listeners, any of these, go to Dork, because these guys, it's like an hour. If they really get going, it's like an hour and 20 minutes. But it's a hysterical show. And if you can look it up, or you email me, maybe I can give you the information on Mo Money, Mo Problems. Yep.
But this isn't the show for that information.
Nope. Yep. You are a much cleaner podcast than ours. We go a little off the rails at times. We are very well, I mentioned middle school earlier. There's a lot of middle school humor on our podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's it's literally like these two guys are in high school. Well, yeah, they go back to high school. Still very much. It's older than middle school. Yeah.
That's true. No, that's a good point. There's definitely more kind of high school talk, but yeah, we kind of I don't think that's gonna change. That's just I can't do that stuff on the radio, so I save it for the podcast.
No, you can't.
I cannot.
It's a great time. It's a great time. So, Rich, this has been a great time. Thank you very much. Thank you not only for tonight. Thanks for reaching out. Home theater guys, it's what we want to do. That's what we want to talk home theater. And having you reach out to me, I've been listening to you for years on the radio. And then I'm like, oh, Rich Keefe reached out to me. And it's about home theater.
It sure was. No, let me thank you again. Honestly, if it wasn't for you, I'd still be sitting here with my TV speakers, just listening to the like whatever, being like, this is fine, but I wish it could be better. Or I'd be reading reviews on sound bars,
right,
and everything else. So, what has this been? 2 months? I think, 2.5 months that I've had this. I've already watched a ton of movies, rewatched the movies. The TV shows are all better. So thank you because you spent a lot of time coming over here and installing all this. So this has been great. I've been loving it.
Thanks. I'd love to have you back. One of your favorite movies, Scream, and it just came out this past year in 4K. And I usually do that for Halloween. So how about you come back for Halloween?
Absolutely.
And sometime in October, we'll do a Scream review. We'll go over some of our favorite scenes of that. And I got a really special clip from one of your old radio days that I'd love to share with the listeners. If anybody, they won't know what it is, but I can even hint it as Leakage in the Ninth. Maybe they could Google it, but we could have some good fun with that because that's hysterical. But I'll tease that a little bit. So, Rich, thank you very much. Go to #Dork at Dork Podcast on Twitter, correct?
Yeah.
You're on Instagram as well?
Yeah, at Dork Podcast, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. The same thing on all three of them.
Yeah, YouTube. You're just shy of 1 million.
We're gaining there every day. We're a little bit closer than we were the day before to get to that 1 million subscriber, which, again, Davey and I have made the promise. If you are the 1 million subscriber, we will do a live show from your house. At a date of our choosing, we will show up at your house and we will record a podcast. So hopefully that could happen this year. Who knows?
Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I told you I was nervous. Did you notice my audio levels weren't right? Yeah, I hit the wrong connection. Sorry about that, home theater nerds. That I worked so hard at getting audio right. Well, that entire podcast was recorded by my camera and not that microphone sitting in front of my face. But it wasn't about me. It was about Rich. It was about the SVS speakers. He loves them. They are fantastic. I love my SVS subwoofers. fantastic system. He's having a ball with it. I can't wait to have him back. We actually afterwards talked about another. I can't talk about it yet because we're going to visit his theater again. But yeah, that was great. Had so much fun with him. He is super passionate about home theater. I was so excited when he reached out to me. And I mean, like I said in the podcast, I was like, that's what we like, right? We like to sit there and talk to people about home theater. And then when you have a Rich Keefe of WEEI Sports Radio, I listen to him like every day, and he's like, hey, what do I put in? You don't know what road you went down. So thanks to him for reaching out to me, and thanks for all of this. So definitely, guys, check out that podcast if you haven't already. It's fantastic. I listen to it every week. But yeah, and SVS speakers. Hey, I'm thinking of getting the ceiling ones because they talked me into that. That idea of them, the way they are in the theater. I kind of like that, and I love to experiment with stuff, so I might actually be trying that out. But if you had fun with this podcast, please hit subscribe. The button's right there on YouTube. Thank you very much if you do, if you have already. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at BrightSideHT. And if you're not a fan of Twitter and you just want to talk home theater, you want to email me at brightsidehometheater@gmail.com. All the information for this and all the other shows that I do, they're on the website, brightsidehometheater.com. And of course, Dork Podcast. Rich gave out all the information at Dork Podcast. Pretty much everywhere is where you can find them. iTunes, YouTube, they're going for that million. But yeah, all of that, great. And if you want to support this podcast monetarily, if you really like what you see and you want to give a monthly donation, sign up for a monthly donation, go to patreon.com/brightsidehometheater and you can sign up for a monthly donation as little as $1, as much as you'd like. Infinity, that would be fantastic. But it's not necessary, but all money goes back into the podcast, back to you guys. We do giveaways, we give away discs, we give away all sorts of stuff. We have contests, who can guess the favorite part of my scene, all that fun stuff. So if you want to contribute to that, you can. If not, no biggie, it's still going to happen. But have a great week, everybody. I'll be back on Tuesday. Give me your comments on how was my audio levels in this. Sorry about that. But yeah, we'll talk on Tuesday where the listeners take over, and I'll see in my audio only podcast. I'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Go push play. Hey, Fred.
This has been a Hey Fred production with theme music by Jeff Bernhardt and Throne Vault Productions.